Hello and welcome. I'm Rick Roller, and tonight, hello and welcome. This is the Utah Real Estate Exam Review. I'm Rick Roller, and with me tonight is also Mr. Dan Naylor, who will be doing the technical aspects of tonight's program. And tonight we're going to be talking a little bit about Utah test questions that have to do with federal laws. And the nice thing about this is that some of this material tonight will be on the Utah portion, but some of it will also be in the national portion of the exam itself. And so we have 15 questions we're going to go through, and we try to explain them to you so that when you see them for real, sometime when you're under pressure because you want it in your head. Okay. So number one, we're going to be talking about the Superfund. Okay. The Superfund amendments in Reauthorization Act of 1986, also sometimes called SARA, renewed funding of CERCLA and imposed stronger standards. Which of the following elements did it implement? As you know, these are multiple choice questions. So do you think it's A, innocent landowner immunity, due care, and due diligence? B, strict liability, joint and several liability? C, implementation of the Superfund? Or D, retroactive liability? Well, if you had studied the Superfund, you would know the correct answer to this is A, innocent landlord immunity, due care, and due diligence. Strict liability, joint several liability implementation. It was implemented prior to that, so that's not it. And retroactive liability, boy, they sound good, but that's not it. Now, sometimes when you're taking a test, the longest answer is the correct answer. So if you're staring at this and having a clue, I would go with the longest answer, and that would be the correct one in this case. Won't be in all cases, but hey, you don't need to get them all right anyway. But this one you should get because it will definitely be on the test, and this is probably the concept that they try to emphasize most when you're getting your real estate license. In due diligence is some of the elements that were implemented with the Superfund amendments and the Reauthorization Act. Number two, please.
Hey, hope you're enjoying the video. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any more of them. And if you want even more review material, we have in the Prep My Exam link in the comments, we've got a plethora of practice exams, we have audiobooks, we have an exam simulator, we have everything that our students use to pass the exam on their first try. Okay? And if you want to get licensed in Utah, check out realestateonlinelearning.com and we'll hook you up.
Okay, number two says an environmental assessment that includes a review of the records of the property to determine contamination risk to a new buyer is called. Well, a correct answer to this one is not phase 2, 3, and 4. It's phase 1. Phase 1 environmental assessment, what they do is they go into public record and they see who owned the property. They find out that in 1925 there was a gas station on the property. Well, that's interesting because back then, they could have had gasoline tanks that leaked, contaminating the soil. And so a phase 1 environmental assessment does not do any on-site testing. There's no core drilling. It's really just a search of the public record. Okay, so the question, an environmental assessment that includes a review of the records of the property to determine the contamination risk to a new buyer, is a phase 1. Phase 2, 3, and 4, that you get into more testing. But this is the one you're probably going to see for dang sure, okay? Phase 1, no real, analysis of the soil or core drillings or anything like that. It's really just a review of the public record. Number 3, fragrable. The term fragrable means what? Is it the tendency to break down and release particles and fiber in the air that can be? Yeah, that's it. And look at the word fragrable. Okay, doesn't it sound like there are going to be fragments floating around? It's not zinc oxide that heats up when wet. It's not new asbestos resistance to heat, and it's not another word for mercury poison. Okay, it's the fact that what they have to do is some of the insulation they used to put in some of these older homes, particularly if it was asbestos and whatnot, it has a tendency to break down, and then these little particles are floating around in the air. And my gosh, if you have a air circulation type heater, And that area, you're spreading it all through your house. So the best way to take care of that, if that is the case, is you have to encapsulate all that, and they wrap it, and so that the particles can't get in the air and then and mess up your house and your life and your lungs. Fragable, it fragmented little pieces, tendency to break down and release particles and fibers. Fragable. Okay, don't miss this one. This is so easy. Number 4. Number 4 says that lead can be found in many products. And the danger in lead is that it may be what? Eaten, absorbed through the skin, inhaled, or toxic to plant life. Well, the thing we're most worried about lead, but that leaves 2, accidentally eaten or absorbed through the skin. And the correct answer to this one is accidentally eaten, A. Okay. Now, if you rub lead and then stick your fingers in your mouth, yes, it can be absorbed somewhat. But the main danger in lead is that it can contaminate food or other types of products, and you can eat it. And of course, that could come from the soil. It can come from a lot of different sources. But that's not what they're asking us here. What they're asking is, what's the danger? And if you eat it, then it's actually poison. So, you don't do that. Number 5, please. Okay, we're talking about radon. Now, radon is an odorless, colorless, naturally occurring gas that if you have a basement that has any exposed soil in it, that's the real danger, because it comes out of the soil. If your whole basement or foundation area is encapsulated, right? In other words, you have a basement foundation and you have a basement type area, and it's all cemented. Your danger would be if there was any exposed dirt down there, because that's where the radon gas would emit from. Okay, but so it is not a side effect of lead-based poisoning. It's B, the decay gas. And if you look at C, it says an odorless, colorless gas comes from burning gas in furnaces. No, that's not. Part of that's correct, but part of it's wrong. So if any part of it's wrong, like burning gas in fireplaces, it's all wrong. So that's why B is correct answer. Or is it a fungus? No, it's not a fungus. Okay. It's an odorless, colorless gas, and it can be fixed. It can, you can remit it, but mainly it's through a venting system. It's very easy to test for. There's some test type products and apparatus that you can bring in, and you let them sit in that room for a while in your basement, and then it can absorb a little bit of that, and then you test it, and then they know if it has radon or not. And it's something, that if there's any exposed soil at all in a property that your clients are buying, you might suggest that they get a radon, or better would be suggest that they always get an inspection and have the inspector recommend that they get a radon test. And they can do meth testing, they can do all kinds of testing as well to make sure that they know exactly what they're getting into. And most of these things can be fixed. On radon, what we do is we put in a venting system, which kind of pulls all that gas that's coming in from the foundation, just shoots it right up. It's really, if it's a 3-story home or something, might be a little higher than that, but it's not going to kill your deal. So it's better just to get it fixed and find out if it's going to be a problem or not. Really good agents kind of look for things that could become a problem and then handle them before they become a problem. And then they're not a problem. Let's look at number 6. Who should a buyer hire to discover if there are any health hazards in a home they're thinking about buying? Well, how about a lender? Yeah, right. Well, can you inspect my home as well as give me the loan? How about a mechanic? Well, we need mechanics, but not necessarily for this. Oh, I know. Call a county commissioner and see what they think. Ask them to come by and take a look at your home. What do you think, guys? That's kind of a giveaway. Well, obviously, the correct answer to this one is an inspector, of course. And most home inspectors also provide this service, or they know someone that does. So, you know, when I'm listing a house that's owned by an out-of-town owner, like, you know, I practice in Salt Lake City, Utah, or Utah area, and, you know, let's say the owner's in California. He may have been renting that house for 2 or 3 years and I haven't seen it. He really doesn't know. Two things I require out of out-of-town owners like that, if I'm going to list their home, is number one, a home inspection, and they'll say, we're going to ask you to fill out a property condition statement. And if I don't want you filling out a statement saying don't know, don't know, don't know, don't know, don't know, unless we also provide them with the home inspection. And the other thing is we ought to do, you know, provide them with a home warranty. He says, well, what's all that going to cost? And I said, well, it's going to cost about $1,000. And it is the best lawsuit insurance you're ever going to buy because the buyer will know exactly what they're getting. And, you know, and if they're out of California, you know, I mean, they've been renting this house. It was mom's house. She died a number of years ago and they've been renting it out for 3 or 4 years. You know, it was free and clear. $1,000 is, you know, what you have to convince them is, look, you know, people need to know what they're getting into. If you provide them with this information and they proceed with the transaction, there's a couple of problems, they were already informed. You know, so that's why I call it lawsuit insurance. Let's look at number 7, please. Most out-of-towners sellers just, oh yeah, sure, that makes perfect sense. A mineral that can be toxic that's found in water, paint, and soil is which of the following? Well, asbestos, PCBs, radon, or lead. Well, radon's that odorless, colorless gas. What about lead? Well, you know, lead's a mineral, right? So that's warm and asbestos, usually coming from asbestos insulation, like I mentioned earlier. So out of all these three guys, which one are you going to grab? You're going to grab D, feel good about it, and forget about it, and go on to the next question. Do not relive these questions again and again and again. You know, usually your first answer is correct. If you go back through the test and you're double checking it, more often, if you change an answer, more often than not, you will change it to the wrong answer. You know, usually your first impression is right. On the other hand, if you are going back through and reviewing the questions because you just love this exam so much, you want to, you know, experience it again. You know, it's such a great experience. You know, so you're going through them again, double guessing yourself, and you see this question, and there was a not in it, N-O-T, not, you know, which changed the direction of the question. And you missed it for some reason, which is pretty hard to do because normally they capitalize it and bold it. But oh my gosh, I totally answered that one wrong. You know, it was not. It was a totally other direction. Then change that one. But, you know, usually your first impression is right. You will lose more than you'll gain if you start going through and changing all the answers, unless you see a mistake. Now, the other thing is sometimes when you're going through the exam, a subsequent question will spark your memory and it will answer a previous question. And you can scroll back through and say, oh, yeah, I got that one right. Oh, good. I feel good about that. And this exam also lets you mark a question for review if you want to. So it will just bring you back to that when you finish the exam. And if you're totally, you know, having a clue, you can skip it. And then at the end of the exam, the software will bring all the questions you didn't answer back to you. And then maybe one of the other questions sparks something in your memory, like I mentioned earlier, that gave you the answer that you needed for that. I hope so. Of course, you only need a C- anyway, guys. I mean, you can miss a few, okay? But we don't want you to miss a few. We want you to get up there in the 90s, okay? Number 8, please. All right, select the below listed federal law that was passed to identify polluted sites, fund cleanup, and apply liability. Was it CERCLA, Sarah, EPA, or TSCA? Well, guys, it's CERCLA. Biggest one, CERCLA, okay, CERCLA. That's the law. Sarah was a renewal of CERCLA, but this one says, you know, which one was passed to identify these things, it was CERCLA, okay? And, you know, that's it. That's the correct answer. You might lean towards Sarah, but don't, not in this context. They want to know which one was what created it, what started it. Number 9, please. Now, earlier I talked about, when I was talking about fragrable, I talked about encapsulating. Well, encapsulation is which materials are commonly encapsulated to protect occupants from existing exposure to risk. Okay, well, gosh, guys, let's think about it. How can you encapsulate a gas like radon or carbon dioxide? I, I don't know. Put a big bubble around the house. That's no. How about formaldehyde and PCBs? Formaldehyde is a material that unfortunately was used as an insulating material. They use urea formaldehyde, and it has off-gassing. The formaldehyde comes out of it. Now, you may be familiar with the term formaldehyde. They kind of use it in embalming, but that's when you're dead, not when you're alive. Okay, and dioxide of mercury. No, that's not what we're talking about here. You can't. Come on, guys. It's what do you think? If you had to guess on number 9, I hope you guessed lead-based paint and asbestos, because that's what they that's how they cure it. If they find it, you see, the problem with lead, like I mentioned earlier, is you rub it with your hands and little kids might lick the wall. I don't know. But so how do you fix that? I mean, you have to tear out all the sheetrock and stuff? No, you cover it with some really good paint. So that is encapsulating it. So the correct answer to number 9, of course, is A. You paint. You probably do that yourself. Number 10, please. Property defects need not be disclosed if. Now, right from the get-go, property defects need not be disclosed? Huh. Okay. A, like lie, cheat, rob, don't tell them the truth? I don't know. A, the seller tells the broker not to. Now, don't you tell. I won't list with you. Well, I won't list it if you're asking me to be dishonest. Okay. B, the property is sold as is. Most properties have an as is clause that is in their contract when they're sold. That's not going to protect you. You still have to make a disclosure. See, the property was built before 1978. Probably does have a little stuff in there if it's built before 78, but we have to make a contractual disclosure on that. D, all known property defects must be disclosed. Now, out of all those, what do you think would be the most fair for a buyer? Look, if you know it, you what? Disclose it. So the answer to this one obviously is D. Now, you might look at, it's in David. You might look, well, we're selling it as is. Now, look, if there's a foundation problem, if there's some contaminant in the home, if there's a situation hitting the roof, whatever it is, folks, like a tree fell on it, like in my house, you got to let people know. And even if you fixed it, when you're doing your property disclosure, you might say, yeah, a tree fell against the house back in, what was it, 2013 or something. And we had to replace some of the framing up in the attic and whatnot. That's going to be in your property disclosure. Even though it was a known problem that got fixed, they deserve to know what that is. They might want to go up and take a look or have their inspector look and make sure it was fixed correctly, or at least the inspector feels comfortable with it. Number 11. Okay, number 11 says Nancy has applied to buy a home with a mortgage. Okay. But it's located in a flood zone. So what's true? Well, folks, A, her federally regulated lender will require her to buy flood insurance. That sounds warm and fuzzy. B, only FHA lenders require flood insurance. No. C, flood insurance is only available directly from the federal government. Well, hang on to that for a second. D, flood insurance can be purchased in any coverage amount. Okay, out of all these, of course, number 11, the correct answer is A. Her federally regulated, they do a check. There are flood zone maps. Usually it's the appraiser that looks at these. Sometimes the lender also backs them up and looks at these. But out of all these 4, the correct answer, of course, to number 11 is A. Her federally funded regular or lender will require her to buy flood insurance. Okay. Sometimes people are shocked when they buy a house and they're in the foothills. They're up kind of in the mountain, and they say, well, how could that be in a flood zone? That's down in a valley. Well, if it's up on the mountain, it may be in where the water comes down off the mountain. It may be in that runoff zone and area. So, don't think just because, well, the mountains, I'm up here on the mountain and the valley's way down there, I couldn't possibly be in a flood zone. Now, they have flood zone maps, like I mentioned earlier. And if you buy a house and it's in a flood zone, well, you're going to have to live with that. You may have to pay a little bit more for your insurance. It is a little more expensive, but it's not prohibitive. And your lender's, not going to give you the loan unless you get it, because they don't want the house floating down the hill or being damaged with water, unless you have the proper insurance. Sometimes other ones kind of have a good feel to them, but they're not correct. They're not mostly correct. Number 12, the best. They're not the best answer. A protected species with a habitat located on the land can A, limit the use of the land, increase the land's market value. Actually, it can tube it. Make the land a prime candidate for development. Actually, it can be tubed for development as well. I mean, if you've got the wrong turtle that lives on your land, it's going to be tough. Okay, automatically deeds it to the federal government. I don't think so. Of all these, it could limit the use of the land. They're not going to take it away from you. I mean, they may not let you do much with it, but they still want their tax dollars for it. So the correct answer to number 12, folks, is A, can limit the use of the land. It can be a real problem if there's a protected type species. So, the little turtles can be really cute, but they can also kind of tank your development wishes and prospects for that particular property for a while. You got to work with them and do some other things to mitigate that, but it can be tough and very expensive. Number 13, you might have to relocate those little critters. 13, when listing a home, a sales agent discovers a serious crack in the basement wall. The crack is hidden behind some storage boxes. Okay, nice try. Okay, but you move the boxes, you find the crack. Okay, so what are we going to do here? Exercise your fiduciary duty to the seller and not tell potential buyers about the crack. In other words, become dishonest because they ask you to. I don't think so. B, tell a listing broker. Well, yeah. Okay, they probably already know or they should know. Maybe they didn't look behind the boxes. I don't know, but look and see. Inform those looking at the house. And D, cracks are not structural and therefore are not material fact. Well, how do you know they're not a material fact? How do you know they're not structural? Are you an engineer? Is it going to leak? And all kinds of problems could come out of this thing. Of all this, okay, number 13, the best answer is to inform those looking at the house. And then they can talk to their lender. They can talk to the home. Maybe they're figuring they can fix that crack, and then refinance later, or they don't. Maybe they don't care, but they probably will care. Your job is to inform them that it could be a problem. And unless you are a home inspector or an engineer or someone that knows about these things, it would be best to have it checked out. Now, sometimes an engineer or inspector will come through and they'll say, it's really not that big a deal. It doesn't look like it goes all the way through, or it's not. There's no sign of leakage. It can be sealed and patched. They have things that they can do to fix that. And on the other hand, maybe it would be something that you'd be well advised to go find a different house. But it's certainly not a realtor call. It's more of a home inspector or engineer call. Number 14, please. Number 14 says, after the seller accepts an offer on a property, the listing broker discovers damage in the ceiling caused by a leaky roof. Ooh, what should the broker do? Immediately inform the buyer's agent. Okay. Now, see, the listing broker has a fiduciary to the seller, but on the other hand, that doesn't mean you can hide material facts or significant damage or problems. The broker may not, so let them know, and then you can figure out where to go from there. Leaky roofs can be fixed. Okay. Look at number 15, please. even after giving a buyer and a seller the required information about a property condition disclosures, the licensees may still be subject to legal action for A, failing to detect customer misrepresentation. B, failing to disclose known adverse facts. Do you see the difference there? Did you interrogate everyone? Or you already knew about this? Okay, B's looking pretty good. C, relying on publicly available market information. Well, what's that have to do with the defect? Okay, that's just market information. D, advising the purchaser to exercise due diligence. Well, you probably ought to use due diligence. Well, that's true, but we're not talking about them using due diligence. We're talking about you disclosing something that is known and it's adverse. So really, guys, it's got to be B, failing to disclose known adverse facts. Okay, just a little bit over a dozen interesting little concepts. We have many of these videos that can be very, very helpful for you. When you're ready and you're getting real close to taking the exam, the best form of study is to work with sample quizzes, exam questions. Don't keep rereading the material. You've already reread it 2 or 3 times. You understand the material, but you really get the depth of understanding from material when you work practice test. Well, thanks for being with us tonight. I would strongly advise you before you go to the exam center and spend your hard-earned money, that you go through numerous practice tests. And I wouldn't go in and take that exam, guys, unless you're hitting in the high 80s, low 90s, or something like that, because you need a good solid C- to pass. But build in some fluff, okay? Thanks for being with us tonight. Remember, we're here for you. If you need help, give us a call at the school. Talk to you later.
Thanks for watching. If you want to show some appreciation to our instructors, be sure to like and subscribe so that they see how much you enjoyed it. And if you want any additional review material, check the links below for our full suite of practice materials for the real estate license exam. Thank you.